So now we're going to get at the question and answering. We'll try to get through at least a few here. Let me raise the same question I raised on the first panel. I'm recognizing myself for 5 minutes. As many of us have made clear, a goal of our nuclear policy work is to align and restore agency alignment with the policy goals of the Atomic Energy Act. These policies helped the United States for several decades lead the world in nuclear technology to spread peaceful benefits of nuclear. So to the panel, beginning with Mr. Nordhaus, would you each speak briefly to the value of making sure NRC's mission is more in line with the mission goals of the Atomic Energy Act? Mr. Nordhaus.
Happy to. I think both the Atomic Energy Act and the goals of the Energy Reorganization Act of 1974, which created the NRC, actually very clearly establish that the NRC has a responsibility to account for the benefits that nuclear energy brings, as well as assure public safety from radiological exposure. As I kind of make fairly clear in my written testimony, the focus on limiting the NRC's public safety focus purely to operations at the plant level actually is propagating public health risk. It is not reducing it, and that is because we don't consistently regulate these risks across different exposures. So EPA's regulations for similar facilities that combust fossil fuels are an order of magnitude less strict than the NRC's. And that results in actually increased public health risk. It results in increased mortality associated with the operations of the electrical system. So for that reason, we would argue that not only do we need to get back to the original goals, but that we actually need to add further that the NRC needs to consider the overall consequences in terms of public health and also in terms of carbon intensity of the electrical grid when it's making licensing and regulatory determinations.
That's good. Ms. Korsnick.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I would just maybe state directly what it does say in the Atomic Energy Act of 1954, which states not only does the NRC or should this industry be guided and provided adequate protection from public health and safety, but also to achieve the policy goal of making sure that nuclear energy make the maximum contribution to the general welfare. And so we believe that in the actual reading of the current act, the NRC needs to embrace that mission.
Thank you. Ms. Toth?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I want to be clear. I don't dispute that the Atomic Energy Act or the Energy Reorganization Act of 1974 don't leave room for the consideration of the public welfare as part of the NRC's activities. But ultimately, the agency mission is as much about optics as it is about setting direction. And setting direction is something that agency leadership can do just as easily. I would caution the committee that any effort to alter the mission be weighed against the potential of increasing or welcoming litigation risk by the public. For example, if consideration of the general welfare is added to the mission, one could foresee public concerns and litigation over whether or not they think the commission had met that benchmark, whatever that benchmark may be. And likewise, we heard from the Executive Director Dorman on the previous panel that the NRC is currently performing important functions in supporting our international partners and other countries in standing up strong safety regimes for their own regulatory infrastructure, and certainly would not want to raise any concerns among our international allies that the gold standard of U.S. Nuclear regulation and safety was being changed in any way at this important juncture.
Thank you, Ms. Toth. Mr. Merrifield.
Yeah, the foundation of the Atomic Energy Act remains the same as it was in 1954. It is a determination that we want nuclear power to be deployed in the United States for beneficial purposes. The agency, the NRC, is to evaluate those technologies, and as long as they can determine that they are safe, they have to license them. That's built into the legislation. And so the NRC utilizes its authority to determine if reasonable assurance of adequate protection has been demonstrated by the applicant, and if so, it has to license it. That hasn't changed. That was the way it was when I was a commissioner back in 1999. It's not different today. I just think the agency needs to be reminded of that to a greater degree, because I think some of the impediments it's putting in place, including what I think is an inappropriate framework under Part 53, go against that.
Thank you all for that. I have some additional questions we'll submit for the record.